Hi everybody, thank you so much for joining. My name is Keith Brooks, and today the letter I stands for the Indian flying frog, also known as, wait, they can fly now? Apparently they can fly now. The Indian flying frog is a member of the family Ranidae, which are considered true frogs, as opposed to fake frogs, and it is the only member of the monotypic genus Pterorana. These guys can be found in India, Myanmar, and are extirpated, meaning once existed but now are extinct in that specific region of Nepal. They were first discovered in 1986 by M. Carr and Kia Satsuo. This is often referred to as Carr's frog. I don't know why Kia Satsuo gets no recognition there. Maybe because his name's hard to say. But they can be found in tropical and subtropical lowlands and subtropical montane forests. From snout to vent, which means nose to butt, they're about 2.3 inches long. They have one litter every single year, and they are listed as an endangered species. And because of that, because we believe their numbers are so small, we don't really know a lot about this guy. We know that they can jump up to 2 meters straight up in the air, which is an insane jump. And they do kind of fly. There's a lot of different things called flying frogs or gliding frogs, and the latter is probably more accurate. Though this guy doesn't fall strictly into what a gliding frog is. The vast majority of gliding frogs will have webbed fingers, but not what you're used to. Instead, their fingers will kind of look like a spider web with a little strip running in between the fingers that helps them expand their overgrown hands to battle the air pressure and allow them to hang glide as they're jumping. This guy doesn't have exactly the same sort of webbing, but he does have webbing and discs on the end of his toes that sort of help him propel himself and keep himself up in the air. But in addition to that, one of the main ways this guy is able to do it is he has little flabs on his side like love handles, which I feel you, bro. Me too. This guy is also called the glided frog, the winged frog, or the flabby-sided frog, which I feel is rude. Absolutely rude. The vast majority of gliding frogs, when they leap from something, they glide down at an angle of 45 degrees in relativity to what they're gliding down to. Other frogs that are arboreal, meaning spending most of their time in trees, can also kind of glide down from a tree, but they tend to do it at a degree lesser than 45 degrees, and this is called parachuting. There's tons of debate within the scientific community whether or not this guy actually glides or he parachutes. There are over 300 species of flying frog in the world, and I just found out about them like yesterday, which I feel deprived of knowledge. And we don't know a lot about these guys, but if you check out Indian YouTube, you can find a shit ton of people spotting these in their backyards and recording them just because they're so neat and interesting. With this brownish hue to them, they're really pretty, they could jump incredible distances, and kind of look magical when they glide or parachute or whatever you want to call it. I'm really happy that I found this animal. Not like Christopher Columbus found it, but it was brought to my attention. Thank you so much for joining me. 100 Days of the Animal Kingdom. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Keith Brooks, and today the letter J stands for the jerboa, also known as the real-life Pokemon. The jerboa, coming from the Arabic word jarbua, is a type of desert rodent that is native to North Africa and Asia. These guys are mostly found in really hot deserts. There are about 33 different species, but they're all fucking adorable. Preyed on by creatures like snakes and owls, you wouldn't be blamed for mistaking them for a shrunken kangaroo. They have a lot in common, whether it's the short arms, the long hind legs, or the tail that they use for balance. But whereas a kangaroo is built for long periods of hopping, these guys are built for erratic movement. It helps them dodge their predators. They're known for turning at sharp angles, for instead of just jumping around all the time, which they do jump around a lot, getting long strides with one leg or the other. Their tails can be longer than their body and their head, and oftentimes they use the tails to help them spring forward, to balance while resting, or sitting on the tail itself. They have really incredible hearing that helps them pick up sounds from far away to alert them if there are any predators in the nearby area or any tasty insects that they can munch on. Now, because there's a variety of species, there are a variety of certain looks, but all kind of matching this model. Some will have longer ears like a bunny rabbit, and some will have shorter, more rounder ears like a mousy mouse. but they all tend to have a sandy color to their fur, which is something known as cryptic coloration or camouflage, meaning it matches their habitat and their surrounding, making it more difficult for certain predators to spot them. In addition to that, these guys love to burrow. Burrowing is the lifestyle, and almost every single version of this animal will have 4 homes, which is kind of crazy. I only have 1 home. Man, what kind of business are you in that you got 4? So they will have a temporary summer burrow, a permanent summer burrow, a temporary winter burrow, and a permanent winter burrow at all times, all spread throughout whatever their area is. The temporary summer burrow and the temporary winter burrow are closer to the places that they tend to hunt within those respective seasons, while the summer burrow often finds itself closer to a place where they can get a breeze going, because in the desert, it's really fucking hot. And oftentimes, if they get that nice breeze or some moisture in their dirt, they'll plug up their burrows and just chill in there in the cold air, kind of making an air conditioner for them. And the winter burrow, the opposite. They try to get everything as compact so they can maintain that warmth and that heat. They've also been known to create escape hatches throughout their burrows just in case a predator comes in, having hidden tunnels that help them get to the surface or somewhere else. These guys are just, like, they're with it. The vast majority of jerboa are solitary creatures. When they become adults, they start their own burrows. They sort of live their lives by themselves. Though some jerboa are known to burrow communally during the winter to help stay warm from the cuddle puddles. Now, jerboa's main source of food is from plant life. However, they cannot break into hardened seeds or digest them. And though some species are opportunistic feeders and will eat beetles and other small insects. Jerboa, unlike their relatives, the gerbils, do not store their food. They prefer to straight farm to table, order fresh, eat it there, then go back home. Now, the vast majority of the species are polygynous, meaning that the male will have multiple female partners. Breeding in most species normally occurs right after winter, when some of these animals will hibernate. The female jerboa will breed twice throughout the summer period, with each gestational period lasting anywhere from 25 to 35 days, depending on the species, and the jerboa female raising now either 2 to 6 babies. Not a lot is known about their parenting, but we know that they do spend time with the parents until they are weaned off, mostly spending time with the female. The pygmy jerboa, only found in Pakistan, is the smallest rodent in the world, being just at 4 centimeters long. That's without the tail. Sometimes the tail can be up to 8 centimeters, but we're talking about specifically the body itself. And the thing is, the vast majority of jerboa are vectors for monkeypox. I believe that this and their limited numbers are one of the main reasons they have never really caught on as a domesticated pet. They are super cute and apparently extremely intelligent. I'm just happy that we can fucking look at how spectacular this guy is. Thank you so much for tuning in to 100 Days of the Animal Kingdom. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Keith Brooks, and today the letter T stands for the tortoiseshell cat, also known as the bitch you better recognize of the cat world. Tortoiseshell cats are not a breed of cats. However, instead, it is a genetic mutation that can occur within almost any cat breed. However, the vast majority of places that you might adopt a cat, when labeling the cat, they won't tell you the actual breed, they'll just tell you it's a tortoiseshell. Now, what tortoiseshell means, named after the popular shell of a tortoise, it's any mixture of colors that aren't white within a cat's fur, generally taking a very specific pattern that looks like this. Predominant colors are brown, orange, red, black. And we'll talk about why orange and black are those predominant colors. You can also have a tortoiseshell cat with a mixture of the tabby stripes, and this is called a torby. Or you can have a tortoiseshell cat that has patches amongst white coloration. This is often called a torty white, a tricolor, or in Canada and the United States of America, a calico. The vast majority, and most people will say all tortoiseshell cats that you see, are going to be female. There are, however, male torties, but they are extremely rare. The vast majority of them will have health issues and won't be able to reproduce. So a lot of mammals, especially cats and humans, are noted as being therian animals. What that means is that the sex of that species, or the at-birth gender, is determined by a group of X and Y chromosomes. So just like in humans, two X chromosomes will equal a female, an X and a Y chromosome will equal a male. However, what happens is these chromosomes take their form and they spread out through all of the cells. In cats, the X chromosome also controls the orange and the black colors. These are manifested within something called melanocytes. What happens in the tortoiseshell mutation is that on all of those cells, one of the X is turned off. And it can alternate which X it is, resulting in A, it being a female, and B, it having that coloration that we see. Now, depending on what time the melanocytes actually form, can change how that's viewed. If they form early, then the melanocytes will sort of blend, and that's called brindled. That's when we see the orange and the black interacting and like they're woven together. If they form later, they will form a patchwork. That's what we call a patchwork tortie. Now, there's some other melanocyte confusion that will happen if the cat turns calico, and that division of how much white is in the cat is often broken up by an artificial means, meaning we can describe it by either mitted, bicolor, harlequin, or van, going from the least to almost no amount of white to an extreme amount of white with a van cat. Now, male torties can be produced if their genetic structure is formulated XXY and one of those X's turns off. Now, that idea of XXY is something that occurs in all animals, including humans. In humans, we call it the Klinefelter syndrome. There are tons and tons of different intersex chromosome combinations that happen all the time within nature. In the male cat that has XXY, the turning off of one of those X chromosomes not only results in the coloration, but also the inability to breed. However, this same pattern can also be produced two other ways. One is called a chimera. When multiple life forms are starting to grow, oftentimes in utero, one will consume the other. This happens in people, this happens in dogs, it happens in flies, it happens in cats. The one absorbs all of the components of the other, potentially producing a chimera cat, coming from the Greek monster chimera, which was a combination of multiple animals. This version of a tortie can reproduce even if it's male. And then you also have something called the mosaic, in which the XXY development, or X being turned off, happens later than conception, meaning further into the developmental process. Now, it's about 50-50 whether these male cats will be able to produce or not, and more research needs to happen because this is often the more rarer of the events within cats. However, it does happen in humans. Now, these types of cats appear all throughout folklore all over the world. Remember, cats have been with us for a long, long time. In Irish and Scottish folklore, to have a male tortie is considered an incredible sign of good luck. In England, if you touch a female tortie's tail on a specific day of May, it can cure you of warts. All torties in Japan are said to ward off ghosts, to prevent shipwrecks, and to take care of one pleases the gods. In America, from the 1930s to the 1960s, these cats were sold under the name money cats. And still to this day, you can find some people talking about that legend that if you take one of these, the money will start rolling in. Well, I can tell you, that's bullshit. Because I'm broke as fuck and I have a beautiful tortie cat. So let's go to Keith Brooks live right now as he discusses what it's like to be a tortoiseshell cat. Keith, can you hear us?
Thank you, Keith. I'm here live with a kitty cat by the name of Barbecue. Barbecue, how are you doing? Barbecue's a little shy from the camera. Would you like to say anything, ma'am? Oh, I think that's no comment, but you can see she's snug and comfortable in her little hidey hole, like that. So, you're pretty.
Thank you so much for that stunning interview, Keith. That is Barbecue. Barbecue is my baby. So Barbecue, my ex and I were eating at this awesome barbecue restaurant in Tucker, Georgia, where I used to live. And as we're eating our meal, all of a sudden we hear a faint meow coming from these bushes. And we were both animal lovers. I had never owned a cat that was my cat before. But I hear this sound and we're looking around and we find this beautiful kitten that was just covered in dirt and all this stuff, and she was scared out of her mind. So in the middle of eating our meal, we start trying to take care of this cat, asking the waitresses if anybody knows whose cat this is. They said they didn't. So they brought us a cardboard box and we took her home to my apartment and like gave her a bath, and I just started taking care of her. And she was my first cat that was mine and my first kitten ever. So she was my baby, dude. She like she would just ride around on my shoulder. When me and my girlfriend were going to bed, she would basically take the kitten, shake her up, and then throw her underneath the covers just to attack me, just to see, because my ex was sadistic, apparently, as I'm telling the story, I realized. But barbecue, like, especially when she was young, was just so fucking playful. She loved attacking feet, like all cats do, but instead of just like trying to grab it, she would like capture it with one paw, then look at you and put a claw in it, just like a sadistic serial killer. She's my serial killer cat. There's this idea that a lot of tortoiseshell owners will say that these cats have tortitude, is the term coined. There's no scientific research to back it up. In fact, a lot of the research sort of denies it. But the idea is that tortoiseshells have more attitude than other cats. And when she was little, definitely. Definitely. Now that she's grown, she's not an adult because she's always going to be a baby, but she's definitely more reserved. She's definitely more shy. She gets fidgety around people she doesn't know. She's not like super into the petsies like her brothers are. But Vladimir is one of her brothers that is just like, that's his little sister. Nobody touches her. Like, that's their sort of relationship, I guess. But she is precious, except for like when we go to the vet. If anytime we go to the vet, then she's like, Daddy, take me away. Daddy, I will let you pet me as much as you want. Please, Daddy, no vets. That's sort of her attitude. But yeah, I remember like when I lived in this apartment, it was a 1-bedroom apartment, and it was kind of ghetto. And one day I lost her, and she was still really tiny, and I couldn't find her. And I thought she had crawled behind the stove. And behind the stove in these ghetto apartments, you have these vast openings that lead to all the inner workings of all the apartments. And I thought she was gone forever. And I broke down sobbing in the middle of my kitchen, just crying my heart out because I had lost this innocent little baby. And then all of a sudden I hear like a little meow, and it echoes. And I'm like, what the fuck was that? And then I opened the drawer of my stove, and she's somehow inside of it. Just like, oh, hey, Daddy, what are you doing? Like, that's who she is. She's just this adorable, precious kitty that I love more than life itself, even if she does have some tortitude. Yeah, it's just like miraculous, the wonderful lives that fate, that destiny, that God, that Ra, that Buddha, that Krishna, that Jah, that Allah will put in your way just to make your life richer. What a wonderful ingredient they are. They make your recipe more complete. So I'm so thankful for her. And thank you as well for tuning in. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Keith Brooks, and today the letter K stands for the Komodo dragon, also known as the land alligator. The Komodo dragon is the largest living lizard on the planet. Also known as the Komodo monitor, it finds its habitat on 5 islands in Indonesia. That's it. That's where they live, other than zoos. But this is where they actually live. On average, this lizard can grow up to 9 feet long and weigh about 150 pounds, but they can get bigger. We'll talk about that momentarily. They are carnivorous creatures that have sharply serrated teeth, sharp claws, and gums that extend over their teeth that constantly bleed as they eat, giving them the most ferocious fucking appearance you've ever seen in your life. Their main source of food is called the Java rusa, which is a type of deer that is native to the Javanese regions. And they also eat carrion, which is dead animals. They like that too. It can fluctuate between ambushing prey and also hunting and seeking out the prey. Mating season starts in September, when the female Komodo dragon will have roughly 20 eggs. They will incubate for about 8 months until April, when insects are more prevalent. prevalent. Young Komodo dragons or hatchlings will become mostly arboreal, living up in trees to avoid other cannibalistic Komodo dragons, humans, or any other predators that might try to eat them. They live for about 30 years, and because of climate change and its impact on the environment, are considered an endangered species. However, the West only learned about these guys in 1910, where reports were given to the Dutch colonial board about a land crocodile in the area. In 1911, they started studying these animals, and in 1926, an expedition occurred to Komodo Island, where the animals get their name from, by W. Douglas Burden. This expedition, going to find these animals, would later inspire the classic film King Kong. The native name of this animal is the Urabuya Darat, which means land crocodile. The largest verified Komodo dragon in history was 10 feet long and weighed 366 pounds. These animals, like the iguana, have a pineal eye on the top of their head that can help them detect changes or anything over their head. They have relatively poor eyesight, a long, forked yellow tongue that they use to pick up chemical receptions from the air and use as a sensory map board. And their scales, interestingly enough, are called osteoderms. Now, what osteoderms are basically nature's chainmail. As these lizards get older, it forms a hardened armor. And the older they get, or the more violent they are within their natural lives, the more intense that armor becomes. Which is fucking like, they're colossus. They're colossus as lizards. It was long thought that they were deaf until a London zookeeper trained a Komodo dragon to know its name. So having limited hearing, they do rely on their other senses, primarily the tongue and the olfactory senses and the pineal gland. It was also long thought that they carry a specific bacteria in their mouth. Initially, this was believed to be the blood that we see in their teeth, but sometimes when a Komodo dragon's prey gets away, which does not happen very often, the prey will then die within a day. It was believed that a bacteria was carried in their mouth from eating so much carrion. This has since been disproven. We have found that they have two venomous glands. There's a division between biologists about whether this venom is injected into the prey or if it's used for another cause. We could say that anytime they bite somebody, the reaction that occurs in humans is a necrosis of whatever they've bitten, a red swelling, a line shooting up the veins, and a throbbing pain. All of that sounds like an envenomation. However, when testing the victims, no venom can actually be found. It could be a quickly dissolving peptide, or they're perfect serial killers that found the perfect kind of strychnine. We don't really know. But the vast majority of the time that they're feeding, they don't let anything get away. The Komodo dragon can swallow a goat whole. I'm gonna repeat that. The Komodo dragon can swallow a goat whole. And when it's having difficulty getting the goat in its mouth, it will sink its teeth in. And because its jaw is able to dislocate and its skull is malleable, it will find a hard tree and just ram into the tree, forcing the goat further into its mouth and throat, oftentimes knocking the fucking tree over. And because they have such slow metabolism, it's estimated that a Komodo dragon only needs to eat about 12 times a year to be completely satiated and satisfied. However, before a confrontation, whether they're going to fight or whether they're going to run away, the Komodo dragon will often throw up or defecate. This allows them to be lighter and help them flee, or scares the shit out of their opponent, because if I was gonna fight you and you took a shit in the floor and then threw up on it, I'd be like, all right, this guy has other issues. I don't want to mess with this. Their eyesight is pretty complicated. They can see something from about 900 feet away. Now, because their eyes only have cones in them, not ice cream cones, they don't really do well with darkness, and they have difficulty with stationary objects. However, their sense of smell is amazing. They can smell a particular smell anywhere from 2 to 5 miles away from where they are. Now, because they're cold-blooded animals, they are most active during daylight hours. They have the ability to stand on their hind legs to fight. As they're younger, they have the ability to climb trees, and they often use their tail as a prop if they just want to kind of lean back. Komodo dragon rests in burrows that it digs itself. Now, these can be anywhere from 1 to 3 meters wide of burrows, normally near some sort of water source. Not only does it use this as its home and a place to relax, but it also serves as a trench from which it can ambush coming prey, mostly deer. When a Komodo dragon sees its prey victim, what it will do is run really fucking fast at you. Komodo dragon can run up to 12 miles per hour. As they do so, if you are larger than them, they will go for your throat or your stomach, the spots they know to be the most vulnerable. In the process of eating, Komodo dragons have a hierarchy. The largest of the dragons eat first, while the smaller eat last. In one meal, a Komodo dragon will tend to eat about 80% of its own body weight. Scientists have isolated a particular peptide that the Komodo dragon produces that they believe can be a wonderful resource for helping us fight medicine-resistant bacteria. When the young Komodo dragons approach a fresh kill, trying to get some nibbles for breakfast, they will roll around in the intestines or the feces of the dead animal. This is an effort to make themselves unappetizing to the cannibalistic Komodo dragons within the group. Most Komodo dragons are solitary creatures, only coming together to breed or to feed, which I get that. Komodo dragons have attacked humans. However, the vast majority of these attacks have been cited as people interfering with the Komodo dragon's territory. In 2001, at the Los Angeles Zoo, a Komodo dragon attacked Phil Bronstein, the then husband of Sharon Stone. He's fine. He just got, his foot almost bit off by a Komodo dragon, which is, a gnarly story, you know? As of 2015, there were only 3,015 Komodo dragons left on Earth. But there's an interesting possibility for more to be born. We've already talked about parthenogenesis a couple of times, and Komodo dragons are one of those animals that exhibit this amazing ability to self-reproduce asexually. And it happens because of this. As opposed to other animals that are therian, meaning they define their sexual chromosomes by XY, lizards, at least the Komodo dragon, is a ZW classifier, meaning they can give away one of their chromosomes, which is fucking insane. So by the female Komodo dragon giving away as part of her chromosomes, she's completely depositing nothing but the W chromosome into an egg that then hatches by itself, unfertilized, producing a new breed of male Komodo dragons. The theory is that this is an evolutionary step that utilizes incest in order to have more of the animal, meaning that the female can wait until the males mature her own offspring to mate with them to produce more Komodo dragons, and so on. It's gross, I get that. But at the same time, it's that animal trying its hardest to keep its species alive. Look, these guys are terrifying, but also just incredibly interesting and unique and sort of exciting to learn about. I think there's so much to the life on this planet that we just walk by and don't even question. Look, I think there's so many incredible facts on this planet that it's a pleasure to bring some of them to you. Thank you so much for tuning in to 100 Days of the Animal Kingdom. Bye, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Keith Brooks, and today the letter L stands for the lionfish, also known as the wet, hungry porcupine. The lionfish is a venomous marine fish that is noted for its warning colorations, often red and black bands, and its ostentatious dorsal fins that are marked by venomous spines. It's actually, the spines aren't venomous, but on the spines are like a gland that secretes a venom. So if you run into it, you're also going to squeeze that gland that then injects the venom into you. That sort of idea. They're native to the Indo-Pacific region, but in recent years have become invasive species of note within the Caribbean, the Atlantic, and the Mediterranean. As of right now, there are 12 described species of this animal, and they include the Andover lionfish, the spot-fin lionfish, the Red Sea lionfish, the Luna lionfish, the devil lionfish, Terroir brevipectoralis, the African firefish, the devil firefish, the African American lionfish, also known as the frillfin turkeyfish, the Terwa pacaspinula, the clearfin lionfish, the red lionfish, the Hawaiian lionfish, and the plain-tailed turkeyfish, also known as the soldier's lionfish or Russell's lionfish. I don't know who Russell is, but congratulations, this is yours. Living anywhere from 5 to 15 years, these guys are aposematic, meaning they're brightly colored in an effort to warn any potential predators, hey, if you don't want to fuck with me, I can defend myself, you're not going to enjoy what happens. The juveniles of the species will have a specific type of tentacle located above their eye socket, and this tendril serves very similar to what we see in vipers, how they have that sulfuric tip to their tail and they lure animals in. This guy does the same exact thing to lure in prey. They feed mostly off of fish, invertebrates, and mollusks. They have a unique ability to inflate their stomach to 30 times its normal size in order to digest and consume food, which is fucking kind of insane. We don't know what their natural predators are, and that's in part because they are such interesting hunters and it's hard to see anybody sort of devouring this. It's rumored that different types of sharks eat these guys, but we really don't know if that's just by an accidental thing. What the lionfish will do is as it approaches another fish, it will blow water onto the fish to sort of disorient it and turn it around so it can just swallow it in one big gulp. Kind of like those fish eating games on your cell phone. That's kind of what these guys do. The female of the species has the ability to reproduce year-round, and what she'll do is she'll emit mucousy sac of eggs containing about 15,000 eggs, releasing it to float into the water. After they release these egg things, they're referred to as egg balls, which is the mucousy membrane that will dissolve in about 24 hours, scattering the eggs all throughout the water, and sort of these eggs will hatch within 36 hours and produce a clear fish fry. Their stripes and coloration will come later in their life. As they are born, they are immediately prepared to eat, eating off of brine shrimp and plankton almost immediately. Now, they feed primarily in the morning, and the venom that they use, contrary to something like a snake, is not intended at all to help them kill, but instead as a protective means. So it's purely defensive. When a human is infected by that, it can cause paralysis of the limb, sweating, vomiting, nausea, blindness, and in some cases can even result in death, though that is mostly in younger children who haven't developed an immune system and the elderly who have a compromised immune system. But if prepared correctly, lionfish is said to be absolutely delicious. It's an absolutely edible food. And in fact, since they are invasive species, there are tons of campaigns promoting the eating of the lionfish as a way to cull those numbers. They occupy reef areas and are known to grow about 12 to 15 inches in length, though the largest ever reported is 18 inches in length. It's believed that the reason they became invasive species in the Caribbean and the Atlantic was that in 1992, Hurricane Andrew destroyed an aquarium in Florida, setting most of the fish free, finding their way into the ocean. And a lot of people believe this is the root of the invasive species. However, there were reports of lionfish in the Caribbean prior to this, starting in the mid-1980s. In the Mediterranean, however, most people believe that it's because of global warming. The constant rise in temperatures has allowed them to extend their natural habitat and will continue as the heat within the oceans continues to rise. So what happens with its spines is its spines are grooved but have a skin texture on top of them. When you are stabbed with those spines, it breaks apart the skin, now exposing you to the grooved spine and the gland on the inside of that actually secretes the toxins into your blood system. Unlike porcupines, the spines are not hollow, and unlike snakes, they don't inject you that way like a hypodermic needle. It's actually the outside of the spine that is the toxic aspect of it. That being said, they're an aquarium favorite, and it's not hard to see why. Named after their appearance resembling a lion's mane, they're absolutely beautiful creatures, and I'm glad they exist. Thank you so much for joining us 100 Days of the Animal Kingdom. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Keith Brooks, and today the letter M stands for the moth, also known as Masura, queen of the monsters. Moths are a member of the order Lepidoptera, and they're any member of the order that is not a butterfly. In fact, they make up the vast majority of that order with over 160,000 species. Don't quote me on this, but I think butterflies are like 12,000 species. The point is, it's an extreme number difference. The vast majority of these winged creatures are moths. Now, differentiating a butterfly between a moth might be difficult at times. The easiest rule of thumb is the fact that butterflies tend to have thin antennae that mostly have a ball at the end. Not all of them, but the vast majority. Whereas moths have longer, featherier, and thicker antennae that they use to smell stuff. That's what their antennas are for, which is kind of fucking insane. Now, the Lepidoptera first came about in the Carboniferous time period, roughly 360 million years ago. That's when they began to evolve. But they only developed their proboscis, how they eat nectar out of plants, with the evolution of nectar-producing plants, which only came into existence about 165 million years ago during the Cretaceous time period. So the word itself, moth, comes from the Old English word mohotha, which itself came from an Old English word mehotha, which was the original term for maggot. However, in between that time period, these were long referred to as an insect called a midge. Now, a midge refers to a different type of insect, but that's just an interesting turn of etymological, fun. The vast majority of moths have their larvae form known as a caterpillar, just like butterflies. They create a cocoon and then experience their polymorphism that adapts them into an adult. Butterflies and moths are the only insects to have scales on their wings. Now, moths, to a lot of people, and more specifically their larvae form of caterpillars, can be seen as a pest for a lot of agricultural businesses, or even for homeowners. There's this idea that moths eat clothing, and some of them absolutely do, but in reality, it's only about 12 species out of the 160,000 species of moths that exist that will actually devour fabric. And at that point, they only go after fabric that is pure, no synthesized fabrics, because they're looking for the protein that exists within things like cotton. And in turn, they help us create other fabric, because I'm sure you've heard the phrase silkworm. These guys. The silkworm is the caterpillar of the moth, and the silk is the cocoon which it creates in order to change itself into a moth. And so silk from moths is a huge industry all over the world, where they establish farms of these insects in order to create the textile. However, there's also an industry, especially in Africa, of these insects being eaten. They are a food product. But speaking of eating, some adult moths don't eat at all. Some adult moths are created without any mouth part. It's theorized that these moths have so many deposits from when they were younger, still caterpillars, that they just continue to feed off of that energy. However, the vast majority of moths that don't have mouth parts have a short lifespan, ranging anywhere from a week to a couple of months. But the vast majority of moths feed off of nectar, making them pollinating insects. And in fact, they pollinate more plants than butterflies do. See, moths range in their time frame because some are nocturnal, as you could conceive. Some are crepuscular, meaning operating in dawn and dusk, and some are diurnal, meaning they occupy in the day. And with all of that variety, it's estimated that 12% of all plants in the United States are pollinated by moths alone. Butterflies come in at 10%. Isn't that crazy? Now, for the nocturnal versions of these animals, one of the biggest predators for them is somebody we covered a long time ago, the bat. They will emit echolocation squeals, and some moths have adapted to hearing this. And some bats will emit such a specific signal that it will cause an involuntary action in the muscles of the moth, causing them to tremor and not be able to fly as well, enabling the bat to catch up to them. However, that's not true for all moths, such as the tiger moth, who learned to figure out a way to click back, but throw its voice to throw off the echolocation. And some of these moths are incredible flyers, taking evasive actions like spins and Top Gun shit to evade these bats. Oftentimes, one of the tricks that they use is if a bat is chasing them, they'll just retract their wings and fall. right up until they hit the ground, then bringing their wings back out to live another day. Now, moths are attracted to light. Common meme that you'll see everywhere. This is referred to as positive phototaxis, but we don't exactly know why they're attracted to the light. One of the theories is that moths use celestial lights as their guiding posts, meaning no matter where it's flying, the moon will always be in the corner of their eyesight, so they always have a sort of idea of where they are. When they encounter an artificial light, however, it almost confuses them to the point that they're drunk. That's why they're going towards it. If they're guiding by the stars or the moon, it never gets close enough for them to feel like they've disoriented themselves. However, a porch light does the exact opposite. Imagine if one day you were walking and all of a sudden you got hit in the face with the moon. It would fuck you up, right? The same thing is applying to them. The Atlas moth is the largest moth in the world. The Hercules moth is the largest moth in Australia. The white witch moth has the largest wingspan of any of the Lepidoptera. Madagascan sunset moth is considered one of the most beautiful creatures on the earth. The death's head hawk moth is famous from Silence of the Lambs. The grease moth feeds on the rendered fat of humans. Peppered moth got really famous from a famous study about the Industrial Revolution. They evolved to create specks of black across their white scales to trick birds into thinking that they were just oil and soot from chimneys cast upon trees. But this isn't the only example of this mimicry that these guys do. Sometimes moths will develop to look like feces, so nobody will try to eat them. And wow. The smallest moth in the world is the Stigmella maya. Found in the Yucatan Peninsula, it is 0.04 of an inch. Remember when I said they use their antennae for smelling? It is one of the most magnificent sensory glands in the entire world. The male moth can smell a female moth from 7 miles away. And the female moth can not only smell the reproductive capabilities of the male, whatever that fucking means, but also their ancestry. They can smell whether or not you've had diseases in your life. What the? Like not even just your life, like if your grandpa had a cold. The elephant hawk moth, when scared, will put up its wings, which happen to look like a snake, to scare off any predator. The female bagworm moth lives its entire life without wings and stays in a silken caterpillar cocoon. However, when it's ready to have its babies, what it will do is it will stick its head out and basically like make a lot of noise to try to get a bird to come get it, grab it, eat it, and spread its babies everywhere. It's this weird unaliving yourself pattern that they sort of fall into. Yet moths are one of the things referred to as an indicator species. If you don't have moths in your area, that means the ecosystem in that area is not healthy. Hey, is the earth doing good? Do you see any moths? Yep, cool. We're good right now. Don't see moths? You fucked up somewhere. Let's say you don't have moths in your area and you want to get more moths. Scientists say that you can take beer, whatever kind of beer you want, a ripe banana, and brown sugar, mix it together, and paint it on a tree, and then you'll find moths there the next day, because they like to get drunk and have potassium. The death's head hawk moth has evolved to emit beeps that sound like bee communications, allowing it to sneak in and steal honey. The bee hawk moth has just evolved to look like a bumblebee. There's something called the fancy case caterpillars, which are moths that build these intense structures of houses for themselves, like burritos, and some of these can actually live underwater, making them the first known amphibious insects. Some hawk moths can fly up to 30 miles per hour. The buff tip moth looks like a broken twig as a camouflage. The sweet gale moth adds rocks to its cocoon, so it sort of blends into the environment a little bit more. Some crazy names of moths are the true lover's knot and the old lady. And moths reproduce with something called a lock and key system, meaning that their sexual components fit together perfectly. Like, you have to have that thing in order to go into this thing. Unlike other sexual reproduction systems, which are just holes. It sounds dirty when I say it that way, but you get the idea. Look, these guys are just so fucking intriguing, and I thought they were just trying to steal my cool clothes, but they're not. They're just awesome animals that I'm so thankful we have, and I'm thankful for you and all that you do. 100 Days of the Animal Kingdom. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Keith Brooks, and today the letter N stands for the Northern Screamer, also known as the What I Have My Ex from Boston Under in My Phone. The Chaunachivaria is a strange little bird found only in Colombia and Venezuela. At 36 inches long, it shares the same genus of Chana with the southern screamer and the horned screamer. It's known for dark plumage, a gray bill, spurs on its wings, mostly white on its face, a black band around its neck, and red skin around its brown eyes, and orangish yellow feet. There isn't really a lot of sexual dimorphism between the genders, and the chicks of this animal look just like the adults except for a little bit drabber. It is a near threatened species that inhabits mostly wet areas in this region of South America. We're talking marshes, swamps, riverbanks, and seasonally flooded plains. The vast majority of these birds are sedentary, though wandering, which is different than migration because it's just a localized form of it, is typical of non-breeding animals and juveniles. They feed on plants, both terrestrial and aquatic, and on aquatic roots, and often graze just like geese. They're known for that red circle around their eye. They have a slightly hooked bill and partially webbed feet. Now, though they don't actually scream, they do make some Yoko Ono-like sounds, mostly like crowing sounds similar to a rooster, and low throaty rumble noises, which is fun. They have a disproportionately small head and look like an animal that Pixar animators would kind of come up with. They're diurnal, meaning they mostly are active during the daytime hours and love to perch on top of trees and caw to the world that this is their tree, you can't fuck with it. Now, they are monogamous creatures that generally will mate for life. During the breeding season, the two mates will spend all of their time together, but once the breeding season's over, they'll sort of congrue back into groups. Courtship process involves making weird noises at each other, preening, and going on long walks side by side, which is the most romantic fucking thing I've ever heard from a bird. Their young are born very advanced and leave the nest immediately after falling out of the egg. They'll be able to fly in 12 days, but spend the vast majority of that almost fortnight in the water, because technically these guys are waterfowl. They do like to hang around with water, but think of it kind of as a mixture between a duck, a goose, and that bird Kevin from Up. That's what these guys are. Now, though I couldn't find a shit ton of information about them, we do have a really long lifespan, or at least a long window. It's believed they live anywhere from 12 to 35 years, but it's sort of extraordinary to me how such a beautiful animal can be isolated to just one part of the world, and the specific vegetation that they need to thrive and to grow strong, to the specificities of the environment that allow them to exist. It's sort of miraculous how everything on this planet can kind of work together, and it gives us more encouragement to do so ourselves. Thank you so much for joining day 47 of 100 Days of the Animal Kingdom. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Keith Brooks, and today the letter S stands for the Siberian forest cat, also known as the floofiest floof in Gulag. The Siberian forest cat, also known as the Siberian or the Siberian cat, used to be known as the Moscow semi-longhair, the Moscow longhair, or the Russian longhair cat, hails from Russia. It's right there in the title. But the earliest record we have of this cat is 1000 AD, meaning it dates back at least 1200 years ago. Yet the West only really became aware of this cat in the 1800s. The first recorded, registered version of this cat in the United States of America was 1990. And all throughout the late 1800s, this was the single most expensive cat in the world. It is a landrace cat, meaning that it crossbred naturally, evolving to develop into what we know now. Known for 3 distinct coats of fur, representing all 3 types of fur that a cat can have, it was long believed to be the ancestor of all long-haired cats. However, genetic testing has proven that cats like the Maine Coon actually descended from the Norwegian forest cat, and that all of these cats just developed the same traits through convergent evolution, meaning they were all in similar types of environments and had specific needs in order to survive, like the long hair we see to keep them warm in the harsh winters of Siberia. A medium-sized to large cat, they weigh anywhere from 15 to 25 pounds, females typically being a little bit smaller. They come in a vast variety of colors, and there's a color point variation or sister breed called the Neva Masquerade. For a long time, it was thought that this was just a variation of the Siberian forest cat. However, recent tests have proved that there are distinct genetic differences between these 2 types of cats. Now, the Siberian forest cat is recognized by every registry and cat fancy in the entire world. That sort of operates like a dog kennel club. However, most cat registries and cat fancies will require paperwork on this specific type of cat. If you do not have the paperwork to prove its parentage and where it comes from, it's often then labeled by these fancies as a domestic long-haired cat, at least in the United States of America. But they really are Siberian forest cats. We're just giving them a name to sort of distinguish them from the elite patronage. I don't fucking know. Fuck the man. You know what I mean? They're known for being giant floofballs. Their back legs are actually a little bit longer than their front legs, giving them a very specific gait that's sort of similar to a bulldog, and almost every feature they have is a little bit rounded out, making them seem a little bit more friendly. And they are super friendly cats. Super athletic, they love to jump, they love to climb, they love to be playful. And that kitten mentality actually exists in this cat much longer than it does in other cats. Though they will become sexually mature in a couple of months after being born, their actual maturity rate takes up to 5 years. Most other cats will stop being technically kittens and stop exhibiting kitten behavior within 2 years. But this guy, he just keeps on kittening. Now, the Siberian forest cat has the highest amount of heterozygosity of any cat breed. This means genetic variation, thus producing widely different coloration, widely different size, widely different features, all of that stuff still consisting within the same breed. But like I said earlier, this cat is interesting because it possesses all 3 different types of cat fur. Those being guard fur, which is on the outside, on fur, which is on the middle, and then down fur, which clings to the body. All 3 of these working in tandem to help make this cat waterproof. But one of the cool things about the vast majority of these guys is that they really like to take baths. Now, almost all cats molt, but whereas the vast majority of the cats that molt will molt because of temperature differences, this guy actually decides when to molt based on daylight hour differences. Generally molting twice a year. It's that change in daylight. What in America we do daylight saving time, it's a bunch of bullshit, but that's the point at which they're going to molt generally. This is the national cat of Russia, and in 1999, a scientific organization called Indoor Biotechnologies conducted an experiment about cat allergies. I think the test was 2 mixed breed cats, 2 Siberian forest cats, and 1 Abyssinian cat. And of those 5 cats, the Siberian cats produced the least amount of FeLD1, which tends to be the chemical component that most people are actually allergic to. When people say that they're allergic to animals, they're generally not actually allergic to the animal itself, but to a specific thing that the animal produces. For cats, it's often dander or something called FeLD1, which is in the saliva of cats. Because cats drool and because they lick themselves, this often tends to cover the entirety of their fur, thus making people react to it. Now, a lot of times, all female cats will produce less FeLD1 than male cats. So if you are allergic to cats, it is often suggested that you go get a female cat if you still want one. But because of this 1999 test and the results being misconstrued by people, a lot of people think that the Siberian forest cat is hypoallergenic, meaning it's not going to affect your allergies. However, there is no such thing as a hypoallergenic cat or a dog. They all produce those same things that make people allergic to them. It's just in different quantities. Well, so while the Siberian forest cat does produce less FeLD1, it's not that it produces 0 FeLD1, just less than the others. And I should know, I'm allergic to cats, and I have 4 of them. One of them being a Siberian forest cat. Now, let's go to Keith live with Vladimir Brooks. Keith, can you hear me?
I'm here now with Vladimir Brooks. Vlad, how you doing? You're a pretty boy, you know that, right? So your ancestry is Russian. Do you like borscht?
It's my good boy Vlad. Vlad is such an interesting, good cat. So my ex drove to Florida before we even met to adopt some stray cats. And it was a mother named Kira and then 3 boys. Loki, who has unfortunately passed away, Ricky, Bobby, and Vladimir. Vlad for short. Vlad is the only one that the Siberian cat really comes out in. You can see that he has some tabby in him, and we'll talk about that tomorrow, giving you a preview of the next day. But he's such a good boy. Like, he's just such a sturdy cat. I don't really know how old he is. I think he's like 7 now, but you can definitely tell that maturation age came. He used to be... He still has his playful moments, definitely. But he used to be like, as you were walking, he would fall down in front of you and just like show you his belly and all of that sort of stuff, which is adorable. And every now and then he'll get into that. But really, he's taken on this more Batman role. I think ever since the 100 Days of Batman thing, he's gotten into that. But his little sister, Barbecue, he's so protective of her. Like, that's his little baby. Nobody messes with Barbecue. Like, that's his sort of idea. And he likes to perch a lot. So that's why I think he's been watching too many Batman movies behind my back. But I support it all the way. He's such a, like, he's a good boy, and he's just such a calming presence. Because all of the cats have such distinctive personalities in my life. Spooky is just a fucking lunatic. Eli is just like happy-go-lucky. Hi, guys. Hello. Like, that's who he is. Barbecue's like, secretly, I'm going to set things on fire. And Vlad is just stoic. Like, he would be the Leonardo of the group, like, without a fucking doubt. And he's also one of those cats that used to be super affectionate, and as he's sort of grown up, he's gotten away from some of the affection stuff. But then every now and then he'll come to you to give you a little bit of affection, and that's when it really means something. Like, he's a reminder that you shouldn't say "I love you" too much, because that way, when you do say it, it's super powerful. You know what I mean? Like, that's what Vlad does. And yeah, I can't express how much I love my pets and how much my animals mean to me. And it's one of these things too where I wasn't always an animal lover. It was through having pets that I started to see, well, there's an entire other world out there, and each of these creatures has their own personality, and Vlad's a huge part of that sort of opened my eyes to what the world actually could be. And I'm so thankful to have them with me. You know what I mean? That always brings a smile to my face, and I hope you brought one to yours as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. Day 48 of 100 Days of the Animal Kingdom. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Keith Brooks, and today the letter T stands for the tabby cat, also known as the ambassador of all feline. Now, a tabby cat is a cat that likes to go to bars, but not pay after every drink, but instead keep it open tabby, thus where they get their name. That was terrible, and my shirt's disappearing. A tabby cat is not a breed of cat. However, instead, it is a coloration capable of occurring within almost all cats. It happens within almost every recognized breed and all domestic mixed breeds. It is demarcated by stripes, spots, circles, swirls, flecks, spots, and generally all tabby cats will have a trademarked M on their forehead, as if this was the days of future past future and the sentinels were wiping out mutant. This trait of coloration is a genetic property that's contained within, theoretically, all cats on Earth. It's just not all cats will present it, but it's estimated that roughly 60% of cats will present as tabby. This coloration is an evolutionary holdover from their ancestors, the Asiatic wildcat, the African wildcat, and the European wildcat. It's the same trait that provided these cats with camouflage. So if you're looking at something like a tiger or a cheetah, they're tabby cats. That's why they have that coloration, which is kind of fucking insane to think about. That same gene responsible for helping them blend in is what you find in your house cat. So the English word tabby, originally meaning a striped silk taffeta, comes from the French word tabi, which meant a rich watered silk. This comes from the Middle French atabi, which is a reference to the Arabic atabiya, which in of itself is a reference to the Atabiya region of Baghdad, which was known for producing rich striped cloths and silk. This region was named after the Umayyad governor of Mecca, Atab ibn Asid. And for a long time, there's been a misconception that all tabby cats are female. The root of this is estimated to be the confusion about the specific genetic breeding happening within tortoiseshell cats, and the fact that tabby became a shortening nickname for the name Tabitha at roughly the same time. But it's important to note that tabby cats have existed
probably as long as cats have. You find medieval paintings with them all the fucking time, and even ancient paintings seem to indicate that these patterns were even present there. In fact, there is a New Kingdom of Egypt myth about the M on the forehead standing for the word Mao, which is the Egyptian word for cat. It's also the Chinese Mandarin word for cat is Mao. So, it's the sound they make. It's Mao. They don't go cat, they go Mao. Now, the 4 typical patterns of a tabby cat are mackerel, which is what my boy Vlad is. It's often stripes. Then you have classic, which is more rounded in brush strokes, but most classic tabbies will have a circle on their side, ticked, which are broken lines, and spotted, which are spots. You can also get a combination of these, which is called a patchwork. Or you can get a patchwork in combination with a calico, which is called a calibi, or a patchwork in combination with a tortoiseshell, which is called a torby. Now, the allele that helps decide whether or not a cat will present the tabby pattern seems to activate a lot more if the cat is orange. About 90% of all orange cats present some form of tabby. And what's interesting is 80% of all orange cats are male. That's because the gene that determines the orange color is actually attached to the X chromosome within cats. In order for a female cat to be presented as orange, both X's would have to activate that orange thing. So both parents would have to give that orange color trait to them. However, in males, you only need one to do it for it to become the dominant gene. But remember that the fact that the tabby pattern is potentially present in all cats means that it can present itself in tons of different ways. It could be the bright tabby, it could be the distinctive tabby lines that we know, or even fainter, only on portions of the body. And in fact, sometimes it's hard to see but still present. These are often called ghost lines. Tabby demarcations that are often covered by a different coat of fur or faint in the coat. National Tabby Day is April 30th. And I've had in my life 4 tabby cats. Vlad, who you met earlier, and Vlad has 2 brothers and a mom. My ex and I had a bunch of cats together. So my ex has Kira, which is Vlad's mom, Ricky Bobby, Vlad's little brother, and I had Loki, Vlad's older brother, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. And it makes sense, the fact that, this isn't a breed, it's just the specific coloration that affects all types of breeds, that their personalities couldn't be more different from the other ones. Kira is very loving when it comes to people. She loves to cuddle, and she's so polite about it. She'll just get beside you excuse me, can I lay beside you? That's who Kira is. Loki was very a curious little boy. He wanted to investigate everything. I miss him dearly. He was a beautiful, beautiful kitty cat. And Ricky Bobby is just silly, just the silliest cat in the world. Once me and my ex fostered a raccoon, and that was his best friend ever. They would have long conversations at night, which was weird, the weirdest thing to hear ever. Vlad is funny, but also has taken this more stoic vibe to be the older brother of Barbecue. So people will often tell you, a breed will behave a specific way. And I just think that could be a good guidepost, but it's more about the personalities that you let emerge in these cats, or animals, dogs, rabbits, anything like that. They have their own unique personality to each of them, and it's what you foster within them and how that develops that I think is the most important thing. And I didn't know that tabbies were just a coloration, much less that they come from fucking tigers. That's where this comes from. That's incredible. But it's amazing to see how the entire animal kingdom connects in specific ways, and the genes that are passed on from species to breed, and those inherent parts of them. One of the general things that they say is that tabbies like to hunt because it's still that instinctual thing within them. But again, all cats have the potential to be tabbies because it's just a genetic part of their history, a part of their genetic code wired into them. But at the same time, I guess all cats also have that genetic code to be hunters. It's just so interesting to see where they come from and the remnants of that still exist. And I hope you find it interesting too. Thank you for tuning in. Day 49 of 100 Days of the Animal Kingdom. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Keith Brooks, and today the letter O stands for the Ozark Zigzag Salamander.
salamander, also known as somebody that was involved with the mafia, but then had to go into the witness protection program and move down south. And I haven't seen the show. I've heard nothing but good things. I have a lot of friends that are on the show. I should watch it. I've heard nothing but good things. Ozark zigzag salamander is a salamander found exclusively within Arkansas and Missouri. So if you're from Missouri, you might call it Missouri. That's that's the appropriate way to say it, I think. Ranging anywhere from 2.5 to 4 inches long as an adult. These guys are gray and named after a stripe across their back called the mid-dorsal stripe. The stripe is typically red, reddish yellow, reddish orange, orange, yellow, or green, though sometimes some black will infuse into that, separating it up, and some don't have any coloration or any stripes at all, but still can be in the species, though that is rarer. Their bellies are white with black mottling across it. They live in caves, forests, freshwater streams, and mostly rocky areas. Not like, hey, you doing, but like rocky, areas. And the reason you find a lot of salamanders and lizards in rocky areas, it helps to protect them from everything. From predators, from the environment, from temperatures, and from people finding them. The vast majority of salamanders and lizards are very shy little creatures that don't like to be fucked with. They just want to live their life. They're basically Jackie Chan at the beginning of any martial arts movie. I don't want any trouble. I don't want any trouble. And they climb beneath a rock. This type of salamander is known as a lungless lizard, meaning they don't have any lungs. Instead, they breathe by just absorbing the oxygen into their skin itself or through their mouths. But they don't require the lung process and respiratory system that we as mammals do. They have 17 to 19 costal grooves along their side, just little inductions on the side of their body, and they prefer to be found in damp areas. In the dry seasons, they'll often try to find something more underground and subterranean because it tends to be cooler there. But you're more likely to find them out and about, or at least on the surface, when it's wet in the area. They like to hide in leaf litter or rotten logs. Other salamanders, they communicate and establish boundaries by releasing specific chemicals and chemical odors to let another salamander know, oh, that's Carl's house. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to fuck with that. That sort of idea. Their diet normally consists of arthropods like flies, mites, and ants, but it's said that they love spiders and beetles. That's the beef tartare of their diet. Originally, they were considered to be a subspecies of the northern zigzag salamander, but it was found that not only are they geographically isolated, but also genetically different enough from that species to be elevated to their own. Now, the courtship and the mating of these lizards can take place at any point in time. Generally, autumn, winter, spring, much less so in the summer, but like a lot of different amphibians, they have the ability to store sperm and deposit it at a later date. Typically, they will lay a clutch of eggs, anywhere from 2 to 5, in a subterranean area, normally a little bit underground in a cave or something like that, where it's nice and cool and damp in late July, having the eggs hatch in August or September. Now, the mother will brood with the eggs until they hatch, and this is not only to give a certain amount of warmth, but also protection from predation. And because they're in such damp areas, it's really easy to get fungal infection. Or they often choose to nest in areas that are susceptible to the environment, such as a rotting log, which has the potential to just dissipate and go away. So the mother brooding isn't necessarily about the warmth that a hen will give to eggs, but instead sort of making sure everything's going according to plan. Females of this species will reproduce biennially, meaning every other year, and the hatchlings develop fully within the egg, meaning by the time they're born, they look like a little version of their mom and dad. They're ready to go on about their business, get a job. Now, again, they love seeps, creeks, karst environments, which includes caves, sinkholes, rocky springs, areas like that. But because they have such limited geographical ranges, it's assumed that they might be endangered. We don't know, but it always gives us a sort of pause when we see that an animal is isolated to one specific area and doesn't really have the opportunity to increase those numbers elsewhere. But in researching this guy, one of the key things that stuck out to me was it's not necessarily about building habitats for these guys to survive, but the things that humans can most do is just choose not to fuck with them. Look, we living on Earth make an impact whether we want to or not, but a way to ensure that certain species survive and thrive and that life develops the way it's maybe meant to, is to refrain from invading into specific areas. That's simply it. Just don't do it. The less of a footprint we put into that marker of area, these guys have the potential to survive in these cavernous areas as long as we don't go there. Which for a species that feels like it has domain over everything, I get it. It can be like, wait, you're telling me I don't want to go? I'm going to go even more so now, says all the brats in the world. But you get the idea, right? I don't know. I think it's very interesting just to study these animals and see how their life is impacted, or how we can reduce some of our impact. It's been fun so far, and we're halfway through with it. Thank you so much for joining me. Day 50 of 100 Days of the Animal Kingdom. Bye, everybody.